Hi everybody, this is Juhi again, Jawahar Alvi, and I'm over here because we wanted to bring to you guys the topic back again of pivotal response treatment for autism. I had started talking about it yesterday, and actually, yesterday was the first part of me talking about pivotal response training for kids, with autism. Today is the second part of that series, and I'm going to go a little bit into the depth of pivotal response treatment for kids with autism. And I'm just going to talk a little bit in depth about what does it encompass, what does it entail, what are the things that are involved in it, and what kind of an approach is the pivotal response treatment approach. So basically, the pivotal response treatment is actually it's a relationship that we build as a clinician between the broader areas of behavioral and cognitive therapy along with developmental research. So what we've done is that we've integrated broader areas of behavior and cognitive behavioral therapy and we've brought it into the developmental research. So what we are doing right now with pivotal response training or treatment is that we are bringing the areas of the cognition and we are bringing the areas of behavior together, and we're working on them together in a setting which comprises of the parents and the other stakeholders that work with the children. Now, there are 5 pivotal areas that have been studied, and the 5 pivotal areas which are called as the core areas are motivation, responsivity to multiple cues, self-management, self-initiations, and empathy. So these are the 5 things that we talk about in pivotal response treatment. And what they say over here in the book is that PRT relates to it's basically related to working with kids in an inclusive setting, in a naturalistic setting. It's something where we work with parents. So these are some techniques that we are giving to the parents so that they work with the child. We are also giving techniques to the other stakeholders that are in the regular ed classroom so that they work with the children. So basically what happens is that we want to make the child be in the inclusive setting, but we want to give them all the techniques to work in all those settings so that we can make the child more successful. And we work on the 5 major areas, which are motivation, responsivity, motivation, responsivity to multiple cues, self-management, self-initiation, and empathy. It's coordinated effort by all the stakeholders, which means that all the stakeholders which are responsible for a child during the daytime, they are the ones who coordinate everything, and it is done together with the help of everybody in the environment. So what the researchers suggest is that in this situation we create heightened MOs, which is heightened motivating operations. So what this means is that, in a regular setup, what we do is that we work with motivations. So we work with reinforcements, which means that we create a reinforcing situation for a child where we are reinforcing the child for everything, whatever they do, and we reinforce for that. But now in PRT we are creating heightened motivations, which is that we are creating motivation for every single thing so that the child is able to work for that reinforcement, so that we are able to create those motivating operations, but we are heightening them so that the child will work for that reinforcement. We are also working on joint attention, which is a really, really big part of pivotal response intervention. Why? Because it is very important in the process. Presence of joint attention is extremely important in the process of a child's growth. And what it has seen is that when we are doing pivotal response treatment, we are also looking at the developmental age of a child that as per the developmental age of a child, what they were supposed to be doing and what they are not doing. So how can we target those developmental milestones so that the child is able to perform at that age level, and we are able to get rid of those deficits at that age level, so that we are able to make the children have a functional life later on. Now, pivotal response training, the primary goal is to have individuals with autism towards a typically development trajectory by targeting a broad number of behaviors and providing children with autism the opportunity to lead meaningful lives in a naturalistic setting. So basically what happens is that all of the goal and all of the targets of PRT is to make the kids, highly, we are making them up for success. So we are, trying to help them create successful lives in a naturalistic environment. And in that way, we're not just working at the table with the child, we're also giving all the tools to the parents, to the other stakeholders, so that they also work with the child. So we work in all different areas: early childhood, elementary education, and middle school, and then we go towards high school setting. So in early intervention hours and intensity of intervention, family involvement, and natural environments, and how they relate to the broader areas of behavioral, cognitive behavioral, and developmental research are something that are brought together in pivotal response training, and that's how it works. What are the things that we work on during pivotal response training? First is early childhood, and in early childhood we look at what is a child supposed to be doing at 9 months of age. What are the things that developmentally the child should have had? So should we work on those things and make the child developmentally at that stage, and then work on the other things? So what the example that they give in the book is, at approximately 9 months of age, children make the transition from pre-intentional to intentional communication, which is followed by the emergence of first words at approximately 12 months of age. Researchers have suggested that intentional communication emerges as parents and other communicative partners attribute meaning to their children, action, and infants begin to comprehend the other people are influential in helping them to achieve a goal. Thus, very young children begin to understand how their behavior produces desired consequences from others in the environment. Now, cognitive behavioral research in the area of motivation, however, suggests that children with autism have difficult time learning the response and the reinforcer contingency. And as a result of this, what happens is that with PRT, when we work, we not only just work with reinforcement at the table, we are looking for those motivating operations in the naturalistic environment, so that we make that reinforcement more effective for the child, so that the child is able to work with those reinforcements. We also are going to be looking at helping eliminate any sense of of learned helplessness in a child. So for example, if there's a child and he has learned learned helplessness in a child, we're going to remove that, and that can only be removed by creating heightened sense of motivating operations, so that even if we repeat the tasks again and again, or the prompts again and again, the child is not getting bored with them. Another thing that we talk about over here is that the children with autism are motivated to respond to receive contingent reinforcement from communicative partner in their environment only if the sense is heightened of the motivating operation, which means that again you have to make a reinforcer more motivating for the child. And I just talked about that earlier this morning too, when I did another video, when I talked about that, okay, if there is a phone and the child likes to play with the phone, this phone is only going to be motivating for the child if you are going to create it fun for the child, right? And if the child doesn't know that you cannot play YouTube on it, or you cannot have fun with it, the child is never going to work for the phone. The next thing they talk about is a growing body of literature suggests that disturbances in joint attention may be a critical deficit of autism. Now, PRT really talks about joint attention in this chapter, because joint attention is something which is so important and so critical that the author of this book talks about. And this actually study came out by Google, and what they talk about is that joint attention is extremely important. And what they say is that deficits in joint attention may also relate to any kind of stimulus over selectivity, and it is a very important target for early intervention efforts. So anything, if a child is, doesn't have joint attention, then what's going to happen is that they are going to be over selective with any stimuli. So they can select a stimuli, but then they can over select it again and again when they are not even asked to do so. Finally, intervention services are provided through a parent education model. Many comprehensive models of service delivery for children with autism include a parent education component to further increase the number of intervention hours. And after that, we talk about family involvement. That PRT really focuses on family involvement, and families are recognized as the critical component in effective intervention programs. So most of the programs or most of the trials that are run with a child, they are run by the family. So the family is an extremely important part of the program. Now, this study not only suggests the importance of parent-child interaction, but also indicates the importance of following the child's lead. So we follow the child's lead. In fact, studies have shown that children learn new words best in joint attentional interactions, in which children and adults coordinate their attention to each other and an object of mutual interest. So the joint attention is very important, and it is extremely important that we are following the child's lead during this kind of intervention. Now, acquisition process of a transactional development perspective, by addressing what happens is that the nature of the social, communication, and language impairments in autism can best be understood by reflecting on acquisition process from a transactional development perspective. By addressing these impairments in natural context, PRT fits within the model of development. Parents are taught to target core areas of autism by implementing procedures that motivate their children to respond to and engage in typical interactions, thereby moving their children towards a more typical developmental trajectory. So what we are supposed to do as interventionists in this situation is we are supposed to move them towards a more normal trajectory just by making the parents and the other stakeholders more involved in the process. We try to work in the next component of PRT is that we try to make them work in a naturalistic environment. What that means is that an important component is that we are going to have the children with autism, they always have a deficit in regards to generality, right? So generalization and maintenance of treatment gains, right? So the heart of a core area of intervention is the generalization and maintenance of intervention gains, particularly as they relate to responding coming under the control of naturalistic environment. So we are looking into a naturalistic environment to implement these goals for a child. And the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the difference between a regular run discrete trial and a PRT condition. So in a discrete trial, when you give a stimuli, the stimuli is chosen by the clinician, but when you're doing a PRT, the stimuli is chosen by the child, and it's varied every trial. Prompts in a discrete trial are manual, but in the PRT, clinician repeats item. Interaction in a discrete trial, clinician holds up stimulus item not functional within interaction. But for PRT, clinicians and child play with stimulus item, that is, stimulus items are functional and within interaction. For discrete trial, response is correct response of successive approximation reinforced, but in PRT, loser shaping contingency so that attempts to respond verbally except those involving self-stimulation are also reinforced. consequences. So in discrete trial, you can give edible reinforcers paired with social reinforcers, but in PRT, you are only going to give natural reinforcers. For example, opportunity to play with stimuli item are paired with social reinforcement. So this is the difference between a actual, like a discrete trial being run and then a PRT being run. Now, the next thing that comes into the criteria of a PRT is a specialized curriculum. Okay, so after we talked about the family involvement, the naturalistic setting, and the 5 core areas that we work with, there is a specialized curriculum, and this specialized curriculum is a curriculum geared towards the children, and this curriculum has teaching content and instruction which is specialized to address central deficits in autism, such as communication, social interaction, through a focus on core areas of intervention in autism, particularly motivation. Thus, the development of a comprehensive model should include a focus on clearly identifying the scope and sequence of treatment programs and describe how the environmental materials and teaching interactions may be arranged, used, and implemented to produce widespread and generalized improvements. So this is all for today, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, and then we're going to finish up over here. Again, the book is called as Pivotal Response Training for Autism, and it is by Robert L. Kugel and Lynn Kern Kugel, so it's Kugel and Kugel. The thing that I wanted to talk about over here is that pivotal response treatment is a treatment in which it's different than the regular ABA. It's a model where we follow the lead of the child. It's more done in a naturalistic setting. It's more done with the other stakeholders. It's also done in the inclusive setting so that the other stakeholders can take part in it, as well as it's done with a specialized curriculum. More attention is paid to the 5 core areas, and the 5 core areas that we are going to pay attention to are motivation, responsivity to multiple cues, self-management, self-initiation, and empathy. So these are the things that we have to work on, and we target those core areas along with their developmental areas and the cognitive areas, so that we can eradicate those things and go towards the next goal and make our kids more functional and independent in the mainstream setting. This is it for today. Tomorrow we are going to go further, and we're going to talk more about it. Every day or every 2 days I'm going to come up with a chapter in this book, and we're going to discuss it. I'm going to talk about it so that you guys can understand it, and we can go from there. If you guys have any questions, you can always leave a comment, and we can go from there. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe and stay healthy.